Hi. So, you guys know that this channel started out with me criticizing feminism, and you may have noticed, but I've moved on to other topics because I've kind of have felt like feminism is dead. It kind of felt like beating a dead horse for a while, but honey, that's not the case. Feminism seems to be alive and stronger than ever. The Women's March assembled around the world recently, and millions of women took to the street in their vagina hats and their vagina costumes to protest against being objectified for their vaginas. Now, as a staunch supporter of the First Amendment, I fully support their right to assemble peacefully and not do things like light female Trump supporters' hair on fire.
No justice! No justice!
Not protect male feminists who punched female reporters at their march.
Whoa! Guys, let's calm down. Calm down.
You don't have the right to film me everywhere you go.
Yes, she does.
Yeah, I do. You just hit me in the face.
And not talk about blowing up the White House.
Yes, I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
And you know, it was mostly peaceful. However, personally for me, the march left a lot to be desired in that I wasn't really sure what the goal of the march was. I mean, of course it ran under the nebulous guise of women's rights, but I can't think of a single right that women are denied that men have. And honestly, I think some of the marchers were confused themselves because I saw a few signs like this. Signs saying, "I dream that someday women will have the same rights as guns." I mean, how dumb could you be, sis? I mean, obviously you have more rights than an inanimate object. Brain cells, I'm not so sure about, but rights, you have more of those. To me, the march just seemed like a circle jerk, feel-good festival, like anti-Trump hug box, with no real tangible goal. And I tweeted something to that effect, and I had thousands of feminists responding to me about how I'm privileged, how I'm white, how I don't know what I'm talking about, but no one could answer, I mean, out of thousands, not one person could answer the simple question, what rights are you lacking? A lot of them said that it's less about missing rights and more about standing in solidarity against Trump, which is viable, but it still seems futile to me because what is it gonna do? I mean, that makes it seem like even more of a feel-good fest because parading around in vagina hats is not going to change the fact that he was inaugurated. And if they had actually provided any measured retorts to any official White House positions, that would be valid, but try as I might, I couldn't find any. I saw a lot of "I heart vagina" signs and "this pussy grabs back" and "don't grab my pussy." I saw those signs on a lot of little kids, by the way, which was gross to me. But basically it was just a lot of shit that didn't really mean anything. I also saw a lot of infighting, and I mean, the anti-man stuff, "men should be eradicated" signs, those are going to be, popping up at really any feminist gathering. But what was more telling to me was all the anti-white woman signs, which at that point, I think it becomes pretty clear that the march wasn't really about women, it was about being a leftist. That's why marchers also ripped up the signs and spit on pro-life women who were trying to march with them, because it wasn't about being a woman, it was about being a leftist. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I was so embarrassed for them that I kind of wanted to be a man again. One thing that I think you guys should be aware of that really blew my mind was that the national co-chair of the march, so one of the main organizers of the entire event, is on record saying that Sharia law is reasonable. Yes, the head of a women's rights march is advocating a system that subjugates women. Here she says, "You'll know you're living under Sharia law if suddenly all your loans and credit cards became interest-free." Sounds nice, doesn't it? Yeah, an interest-free credit card is definitely a great trade-off for not being able to legally choose who you marry, not being able to drive, not being able to leave prison without your husband's consent. Definitely. Sounds legit. Oh yeah, and if one leader advocating for Sharia law wasn't bad enough, the credibility of the march spirals down even further with Cecile Richards. Cecile Richards was a speaker at the Women's March who spent 25 years in prison for kidnapping and holding a man for ransom. And it's actually even worse than that. She actually tortured him, raped him, forcibly sodomized him, and squeezed his testicles with a pair of pliers. Source in the description. I mean, you can't make this shit up. You have the speaker advocating for Sharia, you have a speaker who squeezed someone's testicles with pliers, and you have Madonna talking about blowing up the White House. I guess it's just tragic to see how feminism has dwindled down to this. I mean, it seems like all the crazies in the second wave have completely taken over the third wave, and it's populated entirely by young women who are more enamored with virtue signaling and being a part of something rather than enacting real change. I mean, where were all these millions of feminists organizing marches for the women in Saudi Arabia? You know, the women suffering under that system that the leader of this women's march is advocating for? I think there's some perspective to be gained here when feminists who marched in this march realized that in comparison to those women in Saudi Arabia, the biggest call to arms for their movement in history has been over their president 10 years ago making a comment about grabbing pussies. Smells like privilege. And that's all for now. Bye.